Hi everyone. Today let's talk about science, okay? Because we're going to start the course with talking about the scientific method, which is probably one of the most important lessons you'll ever learn about. Let me tell you a little story. When I was in 1952, when I was 10 years old, I had a friend named Francis. And one day Francis disappeared from the neighborhood. Now, it was a time where nobody told children anything. Frances was just gone, and we didn't know what happened to her. Now we do know. Now I do know that Frances got polio, which it was an infectious disease that strikes the spinal cord and causes paralysis. And apparently, they took Frances off and put her in this horrible gadget called an iron lung. Polio was just a deadly disease when I was growing up, to the point that 58,000 cases. Sounds small now compared to the coronavirus, but it was mostly kids. 58,000 cases, and I to this day I don't know how to swim, because you couldn't go to swimming because they thought it was carried in swimming pools. You couldn't go to the movies. You couldn't go to amusement parks. A lot of things, were just ruled out because our parents didn't want us to get polio and, I guess, disappear like poor Francis. Anyway, life has always been tenuous for children. As an example, a recent statistic I saw was that in colonial New England, for example, think about this for a minute, for every 100 kids born, 60 died by the age of 16. Can you imagine that? At the turn of the century, every 1,000 live births, more than 100 kids did not live till their first birthdays. Okay, statistics were much worse for rural people, African Americans, and immigrants. In the African American population, the slave population, out of every 1,000 births, 350 kids died. Another 201 died by the age of 5. So it's always been very tenuous to have children. When I look at history, Mark Twain, great writer, he lost a son. Most presidents lost children. Calvin Coolidge lost a child. Grover Cleveland. Lincoln suffered severe depression from the loss of, I believe it was 3 sons, might have been 2, but at least 2 of his sons died, but 3 died altogether, and he suffered lifelong depression, partly as a result of losing his children. They died from scarlet fever, they died from diphtheria, pneumonia, the flu, poor nutrition, unpasteurized milk, lots of things put an end to childhood. But science came along. Jonas Salk came along. One day a bus drove down my street. There was a sugar cube. Every kid had to go outside, eat a sugar cube, and that was the end of polio. Diphtheria, all these things, they've been cured, and it's because of science. And yet, today, we live in an age in which 1/3 of the country doesn't believe in science. I mean, I have 2 friends. I have a friend, Marcia, who I'm very fond of. She lives in Baltimore, and she will not get a flu shot. And she said the reason is, one day she got a flu shot, and that she got the flu. It's not possible. You don't get the flu from a flu shot. What you may get is a fever, you might get a little chills. That's because the immune system is working because of the flu shot. My friend Karen, very fond of Karen, even though I won't see her, she won't get the coronavirus shot. She says she got it in 2016 and recovered. It wasn't around in 2016 unless she lived in a Chinese lab. But she won't get the flu shot, and she also says it's because she doesn't want the government tracking her. Which, by the way, I have her on Find My Friends on my phone, and I can find Karen wherever she is. So, these are friends of mine who I did not realize were so stupid. But They don't believe in science. And there's another interesting, science isn't a belief, okay? Science is a fact, okay? You can't not believe in science. Science is what cured polio, okay? Science is what gives your grandmother her cancer treatments. So what is happening? What's going on in America that people are disavowing science? And part of it is because we're getting so much false information. When I was a kid, there was one news reporter, Walter Cronkite. He didn't have any opinions. He just said, this is what happened today. This is what happened here. This is what happened there. This is what happened in the world. No opinions. But now, when I put on the television, I go to different channels to find different opinions. But I know what they are. I know if I read the New York Times, it tends to be liberal. I know if I put on Fox News, it's conservative. I know if I put on MSNBC, it's very liberal. So when you're reading something, you have to know what you're reading. You have to know who's saying it. I mean, some entertainer, I just heard on the news yesterday, I don't know who it was, some lady, some singer, said that her cousin, I forget who it was, but her cousin became impotent from the coronavirus shot. Now, guys, this was not a scientist. This was not a doctor. This is probably not, she probably didn't even go to college. She sounds so dumb. But are you going to take the word of a entertainer over the word of Dr. Fauci? And here, that is the question. Who are people getting their information from? Robert Kennedy Jr., who's the son of Robert Kennedy, who was a presidential candidate, the nephew of John Kennedy, who was the president of the United States, is an anti-vaxxer. Okay? People listen to this guy. This guy's a moron. People listen to him about shots. He's an anti-vaxxer. Okay? He has no qualifications to talk about science, to talk about shots. The people that are criticizing Dr. Fauci, they have no qualifications. They're senators or they're congressmen. They're not doctors. They're not medical people. Now, look, science is complicated, as you will see when you look at the scientific method, in which I have a PowerPoint on the course to talk about how we come to understand right from wrong when it comes to information. Okay? So what I want you to see is where is this information coming from? Who is saying it? What are their credentials? Okay? There's so much fake news out there. There's so much stuff on Facebook, on Twitter, that is incorrect. All these myths. And you're the recipient of all this misinformation. And I realize it's very hard to make decisions based on what is accurate. So what you really have to do is you have to look at the idea put out and just find out who said it. Okay? Who said it? Why? Did they have a dog in that fight? What is their reason? And do they seem intelligent enough to make that decision? Okay, so you have to check your sources of information. My sister Sherry calls me and she'll give me this insane information about something. And I'll say, where did you get that? And she'll say, the New York Post. Well, the New York Post is run by Rupert Murdoch, some lunatic that lives in England, who undermines democracy every day of his life with Fox News. And he runs the New York Post. Now, by the way, I like the New York Post. I get a kick out of it. Sometimes it has really funny headlines. And sometimes it has an interesting story. But I know who writes for it, and I know how inaccurate it is, and I know what their spiel is, and what their orientation is. Okay? I read the Wall Street Journal. Very conservative paper. But I like to get another view. Now, it's a conservative paper, but it has some very smart people writing for it. Okay, I don't happen to agree with them, but they're smart. People like George Will, smart people, well respected, Okay? So I read it with a grain of salt. And I say, well, that's an interesting idea. I don't agree with it, but George Will knows what he's talking about most of the time. Okay? So I'm pretty careful about what I read. Well, I read a great range of things. And in order to gauge what people are saying about various subjects. And that's what I'm telling you to do, is to read things with a grain of salt. Know who's saying it, know who their background is, check the source, be sure you know what the source is. Okay? And the one thing I have to explain to you is that science changes. You know, Dr. Fauci will say something one day, and then research comes out, and he'll come out and he'll say, look, we've got some new data, and this is what happened, and this is what we think. All right? And you have to evaluate that. Okay? Should you get a booster shot? Should you not get a booster shot? I had to think about that. I'm going to be 80 years old soon. And I had to think, do I want a booster shot? Yeah, I guess I do want a booster shot from what I see as the evidence. And the evidence I saw came from Israel. Okay, because I read international papers too. And most of the people in Israel have gotten booster shots. And I think, well, they know what they're talking about. Pretty smart people. So I think I'll get a booster shot. Now, they have come out, the CDC, or I think it was CDC, said, you may not need them right yet, a little bit early. But I got one anyway. So this is what my point is to you. Be careful. Don't get sucked into information that is false, okay? Because of some nutcase out there who doesn't know what they're talking about. And that's often the truth. Your Aunt Sadie doesn't know what she's talking about if she's not a doctor or a nurse, and it's just her opinion. And there's the other point. There is a difference between fact and opinion. Everybody can have an opinion. That's just what it is, an opinion. You can respect it, you cannot respect it, okay? My friend Marcia has an opinion. Get the flu from the flu shot. Not that I respect that, I don't. But she can have that opinion. It's fine. Don't get the flu shot. Maybe she'll get the flu, maybe she won't. My friend Karen, maybe she'll get the virus. Maybe she won't. She could get lucky and not get it. But they're entitled to their opinion, okay? But you have to know the difference between fact and opinion. You have to know that many things that people say are inaccurate. And that's just my warning to you, so that you are, it could be an advertising, it could be a commercial on television. And here's the thing about these things. The more they're repeated, and this is the trick, the more they're repeated, the more they're believed. So if somebody says it enough, it sinks in, okay? False information has a way of working its way into your brain by constant repetition, and it gets stuck in there, and you start to believe it, okay? It's usually sensational, and it just repeated over and over again. That's why the same commercial comes on television over and over again, okay? So you must find a clear explanation for why something happens, okay? Look underneath. Sometimes when my sister will give me some information, I'll say, where did you get that information? And she'll say, well, I just heard it on the news, or I read it in the paper. And I'll say, what paper? What paper did you read it? And she'll say, the Atlantic City Post. And I'll say, Atlantic City Post? Who writes for the Atlantic City Post? Well, I don't know. It was somebody's column. Usually, somebody's column is somebody's opinion. So I can't take whatever she says from the Atlantic City Post as accurate. And that's what I want you to understand. You can read the Enquirer, spaceships have landed in Arizona, or whatever they write about, some nonsense. People believe that, okay? You can read, People Magazine, which is little vignettes about people killing each other usually. And that's fine. It's entertainment. But you want to know the difference between entertainment and fact. And that is what I want you to get out of reading the PowerPoint on the scientific method, which we will talk about at length.